to the Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. The best and brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, athletes. We'll talk to them all, and we'll get the good, the bad, and the ugly on how they made it. Decoding the secrets of success. Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. Unveiling the paths to success. And now your host, Terry Barr.
Oh my, the amount of tasks.
So she's fidgeting over there. She's having a hard time with all the open tabs, but nevertheless, here she is. Welcome in, Tricia Como from Coldwell Banker.
Thank you, Terry Barr. I'm excited to hear.
Yeah.
My official title is District Manager. I'm a Regional Vice President at Coldwell Banker Realty.
There you go. There you go.
I'm an associate broker.
Associate broker. She's a broker in waiting, we call it. She
broker in waiting.
Just passed her broker test. That's a big deal in our industry. So we're really proud of you for that.
Thank you. I have been in a leadership role. I had a conversation with an agent this morning. It has officially been 5 years. 5 years. But I've been licensed since 2004. So almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years in the business. She's been in the business about 5 years longer than I have, but she's a young lady, does a real good job. I call this business for management like herding cats, because we've got 230, 40 agents in our office.
It's an interesting way to look at it. I went into a leadership role, honestly, not to herd cats, but I get it. And do you say that because they're independent contractors?
Oh yeah, they're independent. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's going one direction or the other. You know, it's there's not a lot of corporate flow to it. You know, there's corporate guidance, but
sure,
everybody's going in their own directions.
Yeah, I mean, I think the role of the brokerage is not to create an army of everybody that does it exactly the same. So the herding cats is maybe putting them in the right direction.
Sure.
I went into leadership though for the opportunity to grow and coach.
Yeah. Grow personally, professionally.
Okay. I initially went to college to be a teacher.
So let's get into that a little bit. I want to start with you. And you were a little girl.
Little girl, like a child.
Little girl coming into your mind, you know, when you start to have your own opinions. Tell me, did you grow up with both parents? Tell me about your childhood.
My childhood. So I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania, initially. I grew up with my mom and my stepdad. So I guess I would be considered a product of divorce.
But yeah.
My stepdad was in the picture since I was probably, I don't know, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So he's the only dad that I knew. So as much as we like to use that term, stepdad, I called him dad. Normal childhood. I had brother and sister.
Yeah.
Grew up with my parents. We lived next to my grandparents for a considerable amount of time, up until I went to college.
So as a young girl, growing up, when you hit that 10, 11, 12, 13 age old, did you have thoughts of what you wanted to do with yourself? Did you want to get
10, 11, 12?
You know, you start having dreams about, I want to get married, I want to get a job, I want to be this, I want to be that. What did that mean to you?
You know, that's a great question. I don't think that I had a real focus of what I wanted to do. I think at that age, I knew what I did not want to do.
Tell me about that.
So, like I said, I'm a product of divorce, and maybe it makes sense. My mom was super young when she had me. I think she was 17 years old. So she was still in school at the time. And as much as my mother is probably one of the strongest people I know, I knew that I didn't want to work as hard as she had to work.
Just to make ends meet.
Just to kind of get there. To eventually, you know, having a kid is a lot. So I knew at 10, 11, 12, I definitely did not want to have a child. At 17, college. What I wanted to do wasn't necessarily on the radar. I definitely think I wanted to have, I remember wanting to be married. I don't know if I'm at 10, I wanted to think about kids per se.
Yeah.
But I knew I didn't want to have a kid too young.
Yeah. I know I'm a little older than you are by quite a few years. So I can remember being 13, 14 years old, wanting to have a family. And that was generally because, because, my parents were married and didn't go through the divorce thing. They're still married, so that was always something I could look at and go, I really want that kind of thing.
That's fair.
And maybe that's the antithesis of what you were saying. I know what I don't want, what I'm looking at. I don't want to work so hard to get to.
I didn't want to. My mom had a lot of challenges
right.
as a young mom. Parents and my side family for a little while when I was little. But that was hard. That was hard for her. I think it was hard for her to maintain normalcy. It was hard for her to date, I think.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah.
It all worked out. But I think that's also why real estate was very attractive to me when I eventually did get into real estate, with the opportunity to build wealth, to own property. Those were things that when I was younger, although my parents owned their own house, that was it. Like that was, you know what I mean? It was more of a house. It was more of a shelter. It wasn't looked at as an investment.
Right.
Real estate.
So you said, you went to college. Where'd you guys go? Bloomingburg. Go BU. Go Huskies. And what drove you there? Was it that time of the time where, that's what we do as young people. We go to college, we get a degree, then we go live our life. Or what drove you to school?
Well, my mom college.
Okay.
I was cheesy. So when I was in elementary school, I tested as a gifted youth.
Okay.
So I was in a gifted. I was younger, and we started talking about college as early as like 4th grade.
So you were in advanced classes, if you will.
I remember when, for a long period of time, and in the Reading area, there was a gifted. They actually used to call it BEEP. It was called BEEP. BEEP. I don't know what it's. Probably Burke's Education and Enrichment Program.
Okay.
Maybe that sounds very good. If beepers,
yeah.
I don't know if any beepers are listening to this right now. Probably.
Okay.
And we would go to the Reading Public Museum 2 days a week, and we would learn. I mean, I grew up in museums in some perspective, where we would study art, we would study music, we would study biology.
As early as fourth grade.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was for a couple of years. And we started talking about college. How I picked Bloomsburg, honestly, it was a state school.
Right.
Again, coming from a role where both of my parents did not go to college. I worked with my guidance counselor. Financial aid was available. I qualified for some grants. I got some scholarship. I played soccer, National Honor Society. Price made sense. It was close enough, but far enough away. It had the major. I initially wanted to be a science teacher.
Okay.
And I think science teachers in school also went to Bloomsburg, so it sounded good at the time. So
you go to school and you get there. It sounds like you're dialed in. Before you get there, you've got everything set up. What did that feel like day one?
I don't know if I was dialed in.
No, I mean, as far as, you got the advanced placement kind of thing. You've got the money coming in. You're going to school. You go to school day one on campus.
Yeah.
Were you prepared for that as a young person?
No, I was not. As much as it sounded on paper, I don't think I had the money coming in. We made the money make sense with the grants and the student loan. So I was there. I think I was terrified knowing that was the most money that I was spending. I was scared because I was the first person in my immediate family that actually went to college.
Why were you scared? Tell me about that.
Because I didn't really have anybody to lean on for those experiences. So, say being dropped off as a freshman, I didn't have anyone to ask like those normal things, like getting lunch. I had to figure it out on my own, which was fine. But I think I was more nervous when I first went to college.
Did you have any mentors as a young woman growing up, from whatever age to whatever age? Do you have any mentors outside of your family? Like people
teachers, teachers and educators, guidance counselors.
So inside the school, generally?
That was generally where.
And what happened when you went to college? Did you create some relationships there that were helpful to you?
Yeah.
Mentorship. Okay.
No, honestly, no. I don't think. Outside of some professors that I had good relationships with, I didn't really have a big guidance counselor relationship. And I think that's why I struggled with my major. And when I had, honestly, it all worked out. But I think my sophomore and my junior year, I was a biology major. I wanted to be a science teacher.
Okay.
And I did not like and did not do well in inorganic chemistry, which from someone who was used to getting good grades, I was in AP science courses in high school.
I mean, that's a doctorate level kind of discipline. So those are hard for a lot of students. Yeah.
And it was also the time when you're in state school, college, there was this big apprehension, like there was these warnings that you should go to parties, you should be out and about, because if you're in education, you get caught out.
It's a black mark.
Well, it's a black mark, and you might not be able to get your degree. So I'm like, great. I don't like inorganic chemistry. What am I going to do if I want to be a science teacher?
I don't want to go out and have fun.
And I also, I'm like, at school, I'm like, should I not go out? It was maybe my ADHD. So I did talk to my guidance counselor, and I'm like, what should I do here? And they're like, well, if you don't like it, change your major. It was a very simple answer. And I'm like, really?
That makes sense to you?
It did make sense because we didn't talk through it. It wasn't really a thoughtful. There was no other solution presented to me outside of just change your major. And at first I struggled with it, but I guess it worked out. I went into business. I was a business.
So you changed. You went to business.
I changed it. I went to business. I decided I have a marketing degree. So I have a business marketing degree. I liked it. I did that my junior year. That's where I left Bloomsburg with a marketing degree. I was excited leaving Bloomsburg. I am going to go and I'm going to develop products. I'm going to do advertising. I'm going to work for, a company that I can help.
Procter & Gamble. Who knows?
Yeah. You know that I invented Go-Gurt before it happened. Do you know what Go-Gurt is?
Of course, yes.
Do you know what Go-Gurt is?
Too.
So, idea. Then Go-Gurt came out.
Walk on. I
should have patented that.
Too short.
Yogurt and yogurt.
Yeah. So now you buy that for your kids, and you're like, Dad, I should be working.
Be a millionaire.
Wow.
With my Go. But that's also what I want to do. But there was not a lot of jobs like that outside of school.
So where did you land day one out of school, or week one, or month one, or whatever?
Back home with my parents.
Okay.
And I didn't have a job lined up necessarily.
Yeah.
I was starting to interview. My resume was out there. I did a couple interviews. And I will tell you, entry-level marketing does not pay the compensations.
$26K a year.
Yeah. I think that was actually one where I was like an assistant for $26K. And I was like, wow. And I'm like, well, what's the most you can make? And they're like, well, you can make $250,000. I'm like, great. How long did it take you to get there? And the guy's like 25 years. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot. What about my ideas? And there wasn't anything that was making sense. So I ended up, as I was interviewing and thinking, I was a bartender. Worked in the service industry because I did some of that in college. Easy money, quick money. I didn't have to work 40 hours a week. Still made.
Get your expenses paid for.
Got my expenses paid for. When you're 21, 22, being a bartender is not a bad gig either. In your social life.
Yeah, I've got my son is a bartender now at an exclusive club in Arizona. His wife runs a bar down there, and they make bank. I mean,
make good money.
Got a lot of good money, and they have a side business on top of it.
So I then, when I was making such great money, and I was doing, I'm like, you know what? I was business background. Why don't I open up a bar, or restaurant, or club, or something like that? I'm social.
Sure.
I know people. This makes sense. It'd be great. I actually went on a path to learn the back end of restaurant operations and bar operations, and was a manager at a place for a year.
Is that around here?
It was outside of Berks County area, and I liked it. I liked it a lot until
high energy.
I liked it a lot. Money was good. Big plans. Late nights didn't bother me. I enjoyed it until there was a woman who worked at one bar restaurant, was managing, and she was probably in her mid-50s. She's a bartender. She usually worked a day shift.
Was she your mirror? She ended up being your mirror?
She was like a mirror, and she was never married. No kids. Super fun, though.
Been in the service
industry all of her life. Made great money, drove a nice car, so that was awesome. I thought she was fun. She would go out and be social, but then talking to her,
she was lonely.
She was a little lonely in that fulfillment. I was like, wow, I really think I want to have a family, and I don't know if this And so I was worried. I was cautioned about it. Probably 2 months later, a girl who was a server, it was a woman, I guess, was going to get a real estate license. And I was talking to her, and she's like, well, you should come get your license, your real estate license with me. I'm like, I just got out of college. My mother is already none too thrilled that I'm not really doing anything in my career path.
Get out of the basement, Trish. Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to go back to school. And she said, it's 2 classes. And I was like, I still don't want to go back to school. She goes, it's 2 classes. And the worst thing that's going to happen is you'll sell yourself your own house.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, that's not terrible. It's not a bad idea. So I took the classes, passed the exam, and then here I am. But I mean, there were some other things that happened.
So how long have you been in the business? 20 years, you said?
July 2004.
How long did it take you to get from service industry to full-time realtor?
It was before Christmas of that year. It was probably before Thanksgiving because my birthday was around there. So July of 2004 till about October, November.
Oh, wow. 4 or 5 months.
Yep. Took me to get to be full-time.
Because, in our business, we, if you don't know, I actually work for the same company Trish does. And in our business, we get a lot of young people that get into this business, and it's very difficult, one, to commit to it because you don't get a paycheck.
Well, just young.
Yeah, of course. But, they're limited in their experience in life and things like that. So it makes it a little more difficult. Although we have some great agents that are young people that are just killing it. It is a more difficult step to go from.
I think that a lot of people don't realize that our business is also you're running your business, right? Especially if you're coming from a role where you worked for someone, as much as you're working I consider you're working in a brokerage. You don't necessarily work for a brokerage because, like you said, you're independent contractors. So that's a hard thing for someone who's used to getting direct output from input, right? I worked X amount of time. I should get a paycheck for X amount of dollars instead of now I'm working X amount of time and I'm hoping to get some type of return on my time and effort. So that's a hard mental shift.
Yeah, it's a tough transition
for people. And it's not just young. I think anyone getting started.
Sure.
This kind of role.
Mm-hmm.
It's not super easy.
No, it definitely is not easy. So how long did it take you to go from, I like this to making a living on it?
My first deal, I like this, so I love this was my first deal. Okay. Making a living, and that was when my first deal, I knew I wanted to do it. I was all in after my first transaction. I sold a $13,000 mobile home in Halifax.
Nice.
I was based out of Hershey when I first started selling, and it was a lead from an experienced agent of a call-in. Somebody wanted to go look at this foreclosure.
Right.
And nobody wanted to drive to Halifax from Hershey. They were like, I'm not crossing the river for $13,000. I'm like, I'll go.
I'm in.
I don't have anybody else I'm going. So I went, showed it. They loved it. They wrote it. I think my commission was
$1,500 on
American dollars.
Well, that's pretty good on a $13,000.
It wasn't bad. It was a minimum. That's what I said too. And I remember calling them and letting them know that their contract was accepted. And that woman, her name was Betty Barefoot. Betty, if you're around, what's her name? Betty Barefoot.
Hi, Betty.
Hi, Betty. Was so happy. The amount of thank yous, I love you, you're the best, I can't believe this, I'm so excited, was the drug. If there's a drug in real estate, that was that kind of drug, that fulfillment. I just made someone's dreams a reality.
Right.
I was kind of all in at that point. Didn't mean I made that much. I mean, $1,500 is also a big deal because even on a bartending shift,
sure,
on a Friday night,
a
couple hundred.
That's a few shifts. Yeah.
A few shifts. So I'm like, wow, one showing, in and out, not too shabby.
Yeah.
When it started, I made a decision to go full time. Was another bartending shift where I was supposed to work on a Friday night. I knew if I worked from 5 to 11, I would probably make $250. And I had a client who called me that afternoon around 3:00 and wanted to go look at her house. And it was a $300,000 house.
Ooh.
And I was like, crap.
Yeah.
I gotta work tonight.
Yeah.
And then I'm like doing the math in my head. If I figure out that 3% commission on that $300,000 house versus my $250,
a couple months.
Exactly. And I was like, man, I have enough money in the bank. I could do this.
So that was the day, huh?
That was the day. I called off.
Called off, never went back.
They didn't buy that house that night.
Oh, they didn't. You talked your...
They ended up buying something like a week later.
Yeah.
But I ripped the Band-Aid off.
Yeah.
I think I guest bartended every once in a while if they really needed me, but it wasn't because of money. It was
Yeah.
So it was hard.
So fast forward, you finally got successful a little bit there. You got the drug, you took the drug, ripped the Band-Aid off. And then you I don't know all your history, but I know you're very successful in Hershey.
Sure.
Ended up having a team. Tell me about that transition and that growth pattern up to.
So a lot of my start came from building relationships and coming from a place of learning as a newer agent. I'm not from Hershey. I'm from Reading. Like I said, that's a whole nother podcast on how I got into Hershey. But anyway,
Part two.
That'll be part two. That'll be my second.
Yeah.
But I started to talk to other agents. I interviewed a lot of other successful agents who are in the area. I offered to assist other agents in their business. I would do open houses for people. I would take leads that they weren't interested in. I've made investments in like a farm in a specific neighborhood. I also made some lead investments where I spent money to get like lead generation back to me. And after like 6 months of it, I realized that with the amount of stuff that was coming to me and people I was talking to, I was not following up with everyone as much as I wanted to. And I could use somebody else. There was another agent who was brand new. I saw, promise in them, and they needed some assistance. And I'm like, great, why don't you come work with me? We weren't officially a team.
Let's partner up.
Let's partner up. Let's support each other. I'll help train you. I'm already getting this kind of business that I'm working through. I'm willing to mentor you through this.
Right.
And hopefully, you can see some money. I'll get some benefit that I'm not necessarily leaving money on the table. And it started with one. Right. So it was me. And initially my team was me and one agent and then another buyer's agent.
So let me ask you a question. The podcast is Grind to Growth to Greatness. So the grinding part is kind of where you're at now. Like you're grinding, starting, getting some traction.
It was definitely, it was a lot of trial and error in that first kind of grind, especially with that new person.
How long was that period of time? Like how long did we stay in that period of time?
I want to say that I was a team and not a team, and it was a very kind of loose deal for a good like 12, 13 months. It was more than a year. It was over a year. And I realized that as much as we were seeing success in getting up and running, it wasn't a long-term setup on how we were set up. So we were doing well, but not to the kind of full potential because we weren't really organized to the point. We didn't have a system in place, and I didn't have an admin either. I ended up doing some research on teams because in 2004,
they were big back then.
Yeah, this was probably 2005, 2006, but still teams weren't really kind of a big thing. And how do you compensate? How do you, what's the perfect structure set up? How much money should I be spending in marketing? There weren't really like super specific blueprints, at least on brokerages.
Right.
So I read some different books, didn't love one particular book that helped me. I know Gary Keller did a great job with Millionaire Real Estate with at least giving some idea. I liked that model of having like a team lead and a rainmaker, but then I didn't love the idea that people who worked with me were limited to what they could do, right? So I changed it. So we really just kind of, I call it R&D, Terry.
Sure.
We ripped off and duplicated. And then made it ours. So that real kind of grind happened. The best thing that I learned though from that research is that I needed to hire administrative help.
Yeah.
Because me with two agents was fine, but once we added that admin end, and I also started to document kind of my systems, my processes, that's where that then next 12 months with me, two buyer's agents and an admin, and she was part-time at the time, we jumped almost 40% from what our production was to where it ended up being.
Yeah, and that was kind of my next
huge number.
Yeah, my next question really about that was, what was the catalyst for going from that period of time of
Sure.
really focused and
Sure.
grinding over the process and developing your own process into, okay, now I can see that I can grow this because I've got everything in place.
I think a lot when I was brand new getting started, I was more focused on just throwing money at things and seeing what could come back, right? From lead gen of different farming. I mean, even now, and I tell our new agents this as well, don't buy 1,000 bottle openers,
Right.
or mine were keychains
Right.
with your name on it. Versus ultimately, that doesn't give you money. No, that doesn't give you a client. Those are nice to give to people.
Feels good to you.
Felt good to me. A narcissist, I was like, wow, look at my name on this.
That's right.
You guys should totally call me. Oh, you just bought a house. Okay, but maybe like somebody
How'd you like my keychain?
Yeah, that keychain was super awesome. The catalyst is I didn't feel. I felt like we were just treading water with what we were doing, and I wasn't really running a business either.
Yeah.
I was just we were being very reactive and not super like proactive in what we were doing. So I don't know if there was like a specific like aha moment, but I knew that we needed to do it differently if we were going to continue to see success. And I felt like I was spinning my wheels and doing administrative work. And I'm like, what am I doing? So I don't know if I have that exact answer. It took a lot to get there though.
Yeah.
And I made some errors in my hiring. My first assistant was a very good friend of mine, and I loved her, and she was amazing, and we were besties. Terrible work partners. She did not have the same type of drive that I did. She's probably not listening. She's doing great. Otherwise,
but it's. I mean, she'd probably admit that too. Though.
No, we admitted that we were great. It was great having lunch and talking to people, but like when you got down to like the process system and doing the work, it didn't end up great. I think it was a mistake bringing on team members without having a process or a system or admin to assist. I also made mistakes on investments on like how to get business, money that we were spending, even just on how I compensated my team. That didn't always make the most sense. If I wasn't providing enough value, they would leave. Right. And that was hard as a team leader who I felt that I was providing them staff, I was providing them support, I was training them, I was mentoring them, I was sometimes giving them leads depending on where it was. I was teaching them how to fix.
We all want to be loved too, and that's sometimes really difficult for sure.
So I also read that your average person that joins a team really only stays there for like 2 years. Right. And that was not a fun conversation in my mind because I'm like, man, I'm doing all this work to get somebody up and running. And then all of a sudden they're going to leave me.
Yeah. And I guess if you're good at what you do, I mean, I had a team for a while. And if I go back and look at those team members on there, I can see potential in all of them. They didn't all leave for the same reasons, but as you mentor and you get them up to speed and they're good at what they do, everybody that's got that entrepreneurial mindset is going to want to do it themselves. And that's generally what happened. And a couple of them one moved and one got out of the business.
Some of it, Terry, and I will say, bless you, is that if you have success I think you see success as a team lead is if you see your team members, if they do leave you, that they are seeing success on their own. Right? That they are still in the business, right? You didn't necessarily break them, that they officially quit, threw out their hat. Some might, and some of it might have happened. But I have those too, that they just decided that this career path was not for them. And that's okay. Sometimes people don't realize that until they're in business for 1 to 2 years.
Well, there's days I want to wake up on a Friday and say, oh, today's payday every Friday. But I don't know. There's something about this business that keeps you going, grooving.
I will say that it's never dull.
Yeah.
It's rare that we're bored.
This episode of Grind to Growth to Greatness is brought to you by Terry Barr, Distinctive Real Estate, advising families across Pennsylvania and Northern Virginia for over 15 years. Visit the website at terrybarrealestate.com.
Grooving.
I will say that it's never dull.
Yeah.
It's rare that we're bored.
Yeah.
it's definitely something, when people ask me, what can you make? And because I interview talent all the time.
Sure.
My job is also talent acquisition.
Right. Sure.
Some people call it recruiting. I call it
Talent acquisition.
Talent acquisition.
We don't want to just recruit. We want talent.
Good talent, right?
True.
People who have a great story, great why, who are motivated.
Right.
And sometimes there's no crystal ball, and people will ask me, well, how much money can I make my first year? There's not an answer for that.
Nope.
Right? There's no limit either. And that, I had new to business people make $100,000 their first year? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have I had new to business who have quit in 2 months? Absolutely.
No. So tell me, let's transition a little bit from your team. You're very successful.
Yep.
Had some good numbers eventually.
Yep.
Really did well. At what point did you get called into management, or did you decide, I may want to do that? I know you got married. Tell me about who you married.
My husband, Matt. Married
How
Matt.
long you been married?
We have been married since 2009.
So
he's been with me, and we've been together since I got in.
So was that a transition period when you guys say, oh, maybe we need to, we want to have kids, and maybe it's a time for me to transition?
No, we already had kids when I went to leadership. Our broker had asked me. I was asked a couple times throughout the years if I would be interested in being a manager, especially in Hershey. And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I like my flexibility. I like my time frame. I don't want to have to go sit in an office all day. Like, that's not really what I'm interested in. And I also didn't want a salary. I'm like, I make good money. You can't afford me, sir.
That's right.
I didn't even know what the numbers were, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
And I said no a couple of times and didn't think of it. However, Matt and I got married. My husband joined my team. We found out when we were pregnant with our oldest that he also got laid off from his salaried position. So I said, and I was still an independent contractor, I said, get your real estate license. You'll come work with me because there's also no maternity leave in real estate.
Short story, how'd that go?
It went good.
Good. Is he still working in the
He is a real estate investor. We do not work together the same way.
All right.
It's hard working with your spouse.
Sure. Of course.
I will say that our personalities, if you ever met my husband, we are very different, but it works for us.
Yeah.
I will say we are not meant to make calls together in the same room just because of the way that I'm very loud and boisterous, and he could sit and listen to you talk for hours.
Yeah.
And I don't have the patience for that. So I would feel.
But it works out well.
It worked out well. I went into leadership finally. I was asked by who was our new broker, who was coming to our new broker to do it. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And he's like, just meet with me and talk about it. I was like, fine. And I really was like, I'm going to humor this guy because he's my new broker.
Sure.
Let's go meet him. But the weekend before we were scheduled to meet, I was supposed to, Josie had a t-ball game. And it was at 9:00 in the morning. So usually if you ever have children in t-ball, the games are timed for a reason.
Right.
Because it can go for, you don't want them to go forever. So I think it was like a 45-minute game. And the day before her first t-ball game, so it was 9:00 in the morning, clients had called and said, hey, we want to go look at this house tomorrow morning at 9:30. And I said, hey, love to show it to you. I can't make 9:30. I said, but I can be there by 10:30. Got something in the morning.
Right.
And they said to me, and we weren't super close, but they were clients of mine. They said, no, listen, we're available at 9:30. If you're not available,
we'll get somebody else.
Or I'll call the listing agent. And I was like, ouch. And I did tell them I was going to my kid's game and they didn't care.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's not cool. Like they didn't.
Yeah.
I thought they cared about me as a person. If anything, I just felt like I was opening the door for them.
Right.
I didn't have that same consideration. So I took the meeting a little bit more seriously when I went in with my broker because I just,
well, we have some experiences, that's for sure. In this business, you get them all. And
I didn't feel loved.
Yeah. Well, we all need to be loved. But,
do we? I don't know if we did.
Customers, whether they're friends or not, sometimes they demand a lot out of us. But that's why we're in the business, I guess, sometimes.
So,
and I don't mean that I just mean we're in that business, and you have to learn to deal with it, I guess.
Well, I think that everything happens for a reason. At least I think for me. I don't. There's no regrets on any of it. I think how an agent can be different that's, I don't think you should just throw your hands up and become a manager if you have a client that burns you.
Of course.
There are other factors that were obviously in place, but some of it is, setting the correct expectation with your customer and client, right? Setting availability. The also beautiful thing about our role is that, we can choose to who we want to work with, right? These are business partnerships, and sometimes you're aligned with your customer and client. Sometimes you're not.
Yeah, I think expectation is kind of the key, and it's the medicine for everything, really. And when you set the expectation in front with your customers and let them know what you're willing to do, what you're not willing to do, and what the relationship means between you and the customer, I think that is just crucially important. However, we all do it. We all say, "Yeah, okay, I'll go do this thing that you want me to do."
But if you set the expectation, they can. I think that's where a lot of people falter in their role when they're when they're representing someone, or they have that representation, or they have that relationship, is that when you set the expectation, you never are really making a mistake, right? Or you're not disappointing anyone,
right?
Because you can always go back to some people forget. I get that.
Sure.
Like, oh, I don't remember you telling me you don't work on Tuesday mornings because I have yoga or whatever. But if you set it up front and you have those conversations up front and you're transparent on what your role is and what your relationship is with them, and set those expectations up front, I think it makes a better relationship across the board, right? They understand it, because I'm also treating it as business.
Well, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
We don't walk into a store and just assume they're open all the time. We confirm that they have hours. They've got kind of rules that they follow, or business, that I don't meet with customers, or I don't show houses unless they're pre-approved or they're requalified. I mean, I think that's a good rule to have.
Yeah, agreed. So you become a manager after that, and I guess did you start a manager at Hershey, or did you start?
No, I was here as an assistant. I was with Linda Mel, who was your also manager. I was her kind of co-manager, I guess, here in Camp Hill, and then I also managed agents that worked out of the Harrisburg office.
Yeah, so you got your feet in deep, and then at some point we go through some transitions in the company, and you get promoted again.
Linda retired. I was by myself as a manager by myself, and there was an opportunity to manage a team of managers in my region, and I'm set up, or at least my history shows that I was able to manage people. So that is just I enjoy that. The district manager part that is nice, because I have people who are doing the same thing that I do.
Yeah.
So there's a different coaching level, and I coach coaches.
Yeah.
So we coach agents, and now, I coach coaches who coach agents, which is nice.
So tell me about your personal process. Do you have mentors now in the business? I know a lot of people, a lot of agents, a lot of teams that are been in the business forever that they have mentors, they have coaches, do you have any of those?
I do. I have different types of mentors for different types of things, I guess you could say. I don't think I have one jack of all trades mentor that I go to, and I'm not currently. Actually, I take that back. I do have a coach that I work with. So I apologize, Lindsay. You're probably not listening. But I do have a coach.
Awesome.
I have an accountability coach that I work with on it. And I consider Corinne Heim, our broker, a mentor of mine that I work with, and I got mentors outside of real estate as well.
So in our business, in your business, our business, there are opportunities, a lot of opportunities to operate in the gray. And our business isn't black and white necessarily.
I agree with that. So, our contracts are in black and white.
Yeah, contracts are, for sure. And you know me, I'm a black and white guy. I want to make sure I'm doing things the right way. But how do you operate as a person, as a manager, in an industry that is difficult in some respects to operate in all? There's always a little gray there that somebody identifies.
Well, I do operate in black and white sometimes, as much as there is gray. I a lot when I'm dealing with anything involving a transaction, right? It's easy to lean on the paperwork, right? It's pretty unless you wrote a contract completely from scratch, which most agents don't do, it's easy to go back and go off of that. I also, especially in Pennsylvania, it's fill in the blank in a lot of circumstances, but like going off of that is easy, I think, for me, right? I also acknowledge that buying a house is also often an emotional purchase.
Sure.
And it's often the most amount of money that someone is spending at one time. So like I try to go with grace with customers and clients with that, sometimes their reactions or how they're handling themselves in the transaction doesn't necessarily align with the other parties involved, and there's conflict. A lot of that is, I think, just emotions that are built up and, just general frustrations, on what's happening, right? And that's, if you can empathize and listen to what's going on with someone, you can usually push through those kind of challenges.
So that's a good point. And then as a manager,
Yep.
Whether it's with your other managers that you manage, if you will, or the agents that you oversee here and in Carlisle and Hershey and all the places they are.
Yep.
What's your consistent advice to agents as they struggle with those things? And I don't know what, this feels weird to me. I don't know if I'm right over here. I don't know if I'm wrong over here. What kind of advice are you giving them as far as, how to deal with that? Agents, anyway.
How to deal with agents who are unsure of the gray?
Right and the wrong and the gray deal. I think you're right. I think paperwork will dictate. If you do the paperwork,
sure.
If you sit down with a client and you make sure everybody understands what the paperwork says, what the responsibility are, what your expectations are, that creates less gray.
So a lot when I think an agent has conflict or they're not sure how to respond or react, a lot what I try to talk through is understanding their the buyer or seller's motivation, right? Getting them back to, their why. Why are they selling? Why are they buying? Right? I try to walk through understanding the conversation that they're having.
Right.
And just preparing them for the response. And I think that's what's hard about agents and in real estate is the communication back and forth and, I don't know, not feeling some sort of way by the response. I think as agents, we get very involved with our customers and clients and want to do good by them.
Want to own.
Well, we either get so involved that we start to take things personally involved. So that's probably advice I give. Don't take things personally. Right. Don't ever send an email in anger, an email or text in anger. Don't hit send, write it out, walk back. That's good advice that someone gave me before. Don't hot type. Hot typing will get you in trouble. Understand someone's why, and be solution based. When problems happen, and in real estate and in this business, problems will arise. Don't focus so much on how you got there. Focus on how you're coming to a solution. If that makes sense. Because if we spend 30 minutes on the problem, on how we got to the problem and not on the solution, we're not necessarily in a better place. Doesn't mean that we can't go back and address and fix where it broke. But sometimes you need to jump in a situation and figure out, okay, how do we get to what our end goal was? What was their end goal? What was their
Well, I think
hopefully I answered your question.
No, I think you did. I think it's indicative of that problem, though. It's not an easy solution lots of times.
No.
You have to think through it, think about their why. I think Coldwell Banker, I know we both work for Coldwell Banker, does a good job in providing a lot of assets for us. Training we train all the time, and so that's helpful for agents. But that gray area for me is such a big place that I try to avoid, but you're going to run into it in that business.
Well, I think that there's an outline for the paperwork. There is an outline for the process. I mean, we're very good at explaining how to get from point A to point B. I think the gray is, and Terry, a lot of that falls into those emotions, right? Like how people feel. Sometimes a lot of that gray or some of that conflict in gray, it's communication problems. That's actually usually like the number one reason if there's any type of like conflict, it's because honestly, people aren't communicating and they're not hearing each other.
You think technology has been
100%.
I mean, technology makes it super easy to be non-responsive but responsive all at the same time.
Or being what I consider like a keyboard warrior, right?
Yeah.
I laugh. And this comes from the nicest possible place. My husband and I had talked about this, that there are some people who you can tell who have never been threatened to be punched in the nose.
Yeah.
Right. That they are so confident and aggressive behind their, on their computer or on their text that they will just pop off, and they're like, you can tell that they've never been in a position, because they wouldn't say that to someone to their face. And that's hard. I think it's very hard to pick up tone in a text message or in an email. I have not hired new to business agents who've acknowledged that they don't like to talk to people.
That's tough.
I had a gentleman once who I met who said that his main form of communication is text, and he had no intention of picking up the phone. And I said, unless you have no personality, zero personality, and it's going to be very difficult to conduct all of your business on a text message. Not impossible. I think that some people can do it, but you better have a lot of inventory personally that you can sell to try to negotiate and to try to understand how someone feels in a text message. I think is very difficult.
Yeah, it's impossible for sure. So here you are, district manager.
Yeah.
On your way up. What's next for you?
What is next for me?
I mean, if you can imagine, where do you see yourself 5 years?
So I hate that. That is the worst question. The 5-year question has always been the struggle question. I have that often. Every year I think they always ask you, where do you see yourself in 5 years? 5 years from now, gosh, I would hope that I would see myself potentially in a bigger role with a bigger team of leaders, potentially.
Down to Philly.
I'm not sure. I'm still very connected to my local community, and I enjoy being a part of my local community. I have small children. I love the opportunity to be able to work with.
How many kids you have? Two kids.
Two. To learn, to grow, to build. I like getting out of bed every day. I do for the most part. I don't like to stay in bed and not want to come into the office. I'm definitely committed. I feel like I want more of what I have, but I don't think I would be disappointed if I'm in the exact kind of same spot that I am in, because I think in real estate, it's always an opportunity to still grow internally, if that makes any sense. Some of that is, winning, making things more efficient, easier, right? Finding new ways to do things, helping people find success is a huge win. I think, why do teachers continue to go back, right?
Yeah.
Every single year, who are teaching the same curriculum year after year after year.
They want to see the lights go on.
They want to see the lights go on. They want to see the excitement. I feel that I win when I see other people win. So I feel a lot of fulfillment in that. So hopefully that answers it. I see myself potentially in a bigger role, but I think that this role in general has a lot of excitement as an internal growth. Just a lot of internal growth and opportunity. I could probably list 100 things that I want to accomplish
with the company.
Sure.
Well, that's interesting. That's a good answer. I like that. So what's your favorite app on your phone?
The favorite right now, favorite app on my phone? CoStar.
CoStar. It's business related.
No, it's not. That's actually the CoStar app is a horoscope.
Oh, is it really?
I thought it was. CoStar is also a commercial. My commercial. CoStar is also a commercial platform that you can a database. Sure. CoStar is also an app on your phone that you can track. I know it's so cheesy. You can track your horoscope. I believe the moon has all kinds of things that it helps me get through my day when people are being weird. Sometimes I'll pull up my horoscope, totally generalize that. I believe my personality fits with what my horoscope is. So that's one. My other app that I love right now, which keeps me organized, is Outlook, and it sounds so cheesy. My Outlook app is my favorite app on my phone.
There's a lot of moving parts to your world.
Well, it's got my calendar, it's got my email, it's got tasks I can connect.
So what keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night?
Or what do you fear that you can't control? Those kinds of things.
That fear what I can't control.
Yeah.
I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
So that keeps me up at night. I'm very good. I like tasks. Those, although the anxiety,
all my tabs open on my.
That would drive me. I like a list. I like a checklist. I like goals. I like to be the master of my own destiny. I think real estate makes you want to be the master of your own destiny. What keeps me awake at night are the things that I don't have control over.
Well,
and that's a horrible place to be.
Yeah.
So a lot of my focus is to accept the things that I cannot control and focus on the things that I do have control over. Yeah. That level sets me a lot.
Anything new in your life that we can look forward to?
Anything new in my life?
Yeah. Anything we can make fun?
It's the holiday season.
Yes.
What can I say that's fun about I feel like the holidays are fun but not fun.
In our business, they can be fractured a little bit. I got a show House of the Poconos on the 23rd. So get it.
I think it's just a time of year where what we talk about is like getting together and being with people and spending time and feeling almost, in parentheses, forced to spend as much quality time as you possibly can with the ones that you love. Yeah. And then if you're not, you're like...
It's hard to unplug sometimes. We need to...
It's hard to unplug, but I'm excited for 2024 as much as I can be. I mean, we are in such a dynamic kind of industry. I refuse to accept doom and gloom on anything. I don't believe in any kind of projections because they're always wrong.
Seems that way.
It's disappointing sometimes. But I think, again, bringing it back, focus on what we have control over. Yeah. If you can focus on that, obviously that'll put you in the right mindset.
Awesome. Well, listen, I want to thank you. I know it was we planned this a couple of days ago, and you're like, I don't know if I'm prepared, but I want to thank you.
I was not prepared.
You did a great job. Thanks for sharing your journey with us. But just want to thank you for that, and we'll get part 2 somewhere down the line. But thanks for coming on. So. Appreciate you being here. Our first guest, Tricia Como.
Am I the first official guest? Am I this was the Virgin Voyage?
I've got a couple other in the can, but you'll be coming out first.
Hi.
Our first official guest, Tricia Como from Coldwell Banker Realty. Thanks for stopping in to our podcast, Grind to Grow to Greatness. I'm your host, Terry Barr, and we will see you the next time. Have a good day.
Happy holidays.
You've been listening to the Grind to Growth to Greatness podcast. Our passion is to talk to the brightest entrepreneurs, CEOs, creators, athletes, anyone who's made it, and dive into their struggles, their successes, and their secrets. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Grind to Growth to Greatness. See you next time.